I know why you clicked on the thumbnail. I know exactly why you clicked on it. You saw a character like Jinlu, and you're like, oh my god, he's gonna talk about her. But the truth is, I can't really speak much more on the character. All I can say is that you Jinlu mains are winning really hard. Now, with the destruction characters becoming a lot more prominent in Honkai Star Rail, we've been getting a lot of characters in that path. And I think now is a good time, after we've talked about in the past, destruction characters rising to become a very nice path. We can talk about the characters individually and the rise of sub DPS characters. And I think before we talk about anything else, a sub DPS character should always be self-sufficient, because you want that character to exist in your team without draining any resources from the team's ecosystem, and Clara does an amazing job at that. She has her own self-sustain if you have her light cone, she has her own self-cleanse with her traces, and she has the ability to counterattack the enemy, dealing a massive amount of damage without even taking her turn. So she's a character that you don't necessarily have to use your elemental skill to do damage with the character, so meaning you can use her to generate skill points for the team and still do damage because she'll be attacking the enemy constantly. I think that makes her an amazing sub DPS. Now, what's very important is that whenever Clara uses her ultimate, she decreases the damage that is dealt to her, and she counterattacks the enemy, dealing a large amount of damage with her enhanced counterattack. On top of that, she increases her own taunt value, making it much more easier to be hit by the enemy. So in the past, you've been seeing teams like this, a variant of the hyper carry, where you have your main damage dealer, you have your harmony or support, offensive support buffer, you have your defensive option, and then you have your pseudo tank, or your character that acts as a sub DPS without draining any resources from the team's ecosystem. This character can coexist in this team without having to take anything away from the healer, anything away from your offensive support character, and your main DPS. It just works in this character's favor that a character like Bronya buffs the whole team with her ultimate, thus a Clara getting a lot of value with Bronya in the team. With the rise of Mono-Quantum, you will see a lot more Qingque in a team with Seal, and that is because Qingque is a character that can act as a sub DPS without taking too many resources away from the team, and that's very important because Qingque at Arlan 0 can't do that herself. Now, although Qingque is a character that can increase her own taunt value because she is a squishy character herself, she's a character that doesn't really want to burn many skill points either, and she's a character that doesn't really have any ways of mitigating damage. So the only team where she could be a very nice sub DPS in is in the Mono-Quantum team. Qingque has a trace where whenever she uses her elemental skill, then she can regenerate one skill point, and this happens once per battle, but the one skill point is very, very valuable. Take into consideration that she gets skill points with her Eidolons. With Eidolon 4, Autarky allows Qingque to not have to drain as many skill points as you might think. Of course, it is a 24% chance, so if you get unlucky, you get unlucky, but this makes the character a lot more valuable as a sub DPS in specifically the Mono-Quantum team comp. Eidolon 6 is a game changer because it allows her to exist in the team with Seal because she recovers one skill point after using her enhanced basic attack. That's very important because currently characters that use their enhanced basic attack, even Clara using her enhanced counterattack, can't even generate skill points for the team. So with a character like Qingque, she has a lot of potential to shine in the near future, and I think a lot of you will be very satisfied with her in your team comps with your other damage dealers in the Mono-Quantum if you have Eidolons for her. A team like this utilizes Serval really well as a sub DPS. She may have to use her elemental skill every now and then, but that's a-okay because characters like Asta and characters like Jeopard are very skill point positive, allowing Serval and Kafka to use as many skill points as they might need. But Serval, being a character that only really needs to use her elemental skill every now and then, makes it even better for a character like Kafka, who needs to use her skill point every single time she takes her turn. Now, you take into consideration Kafka detonating the dots that are applied on the enemy, you can see why a character like Serval benefits from being in the same comp with a character like Kafka, because Kafka will detonate those dots that Serval puts onto the enemy, allowing Serval to exist in the team party as a sub DPS without draining too many resources from the team's ecosystem. Sampo is still a really good character that fills that role as a sub DPS. You can pretty much use any DOT character, and that acts as a sub DPS in the team. A character like Arlan is really interesting. He doesn't really burn skill points, and I think that means he can act as a sub DPS as well. The only problem is that he hasn't really had his time to shine. I still think he is a decent character. He might not be the best character in the world, but the truth is, well, you can say that about a lot of characters in the game currently. Of course, when it comes to damage, you want to use the best option possible, well, most players. because your goal is to tackle the hardest contents in the game. And Arlan might not be the best character for that, but I still believe that he's a character that can fulfill the role as a sub DPS for the future of the game. And I think that's something to take into consideration when it comes to designing your team comps for the future. Now, what I find very interesting about a team like this is that Jeopard works really well with destruction characters. Here's why. Every single destruction character has ways of mitigating damage. Maybe they have higher defenses, maybe they have higher HP thresholds. A character like Jeopard is able to apply shields to the team. If you take into consideration, on top of that a character like Arlan really wants a character like Jeopard in the team because Arlan has no ways of mitigating as much damage as a character like Clara does. Now, a character like Blade is very interesting too, and I don't have him to show you guys, but Blade is a character that drains his own HP. He also wants other characters to drain his HP for him. Now, that's very interesting. We don't have a character like that right now, but I'm sure that's a character we'll get in the future. And if we ever do get a character like that, then that character may work really well in this team comp with other sub DPS as well. And how can I not talk about the most recent addition to the sub DPS role, and that is Blade. He's a character that only uses elemental skill one time to take that skill point, and after that he doesn't really want to use any skill points at all. That makes him very good in teams where you need more damage, and not necessarily another buffer. I can think of a team like that with a character like maybe Seal. Maybe you already have enough damage, and you just want to use another damage dealer in that team comp, such as a character like Blade that is very comfortable to use. He is very, very comfortable. Every time I use this character for a support run, I find myself not ever having to worry about losing the run, because he's a character that is very self-sufficient like Clara and provides a ton of damage to the overall DPS for the team. So there you have it. Now, while this may not be better than a hyper carry team, at least not yet, while this may not be as good as Denheng and BB2 and his team, we can all agree that new team comps is very fun. Having something new to play around with when it comes to teams and designing teams, it brings a lot of enjoyment to a game that may get stale at times. I think we also can agree that characters that have not found their use yet, being able to find their use in the future, such as a character like Arlan, and even characters like Qingque in teams with Seal, I think that makes it even more enjoyable for some players. Because maybe your favorite character is Qingque and you also like Seal, and you wanted to use them both together for the longest time. Well, with the addition of Fu Xuan and even a character like Lynx, you may be able to do that. And if you also take into consideration that in the future, there will be characters like Arlan that may have found his place, may have found his home. Character like Jinglu may do something to benefit characters like Arlan, maybe even a character like Blade. We'll have to wait and see. That's the video here. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a good rest of your day. Peace. You saw a character like Jinglu, like, oh my god, he's gonna talk about her. I can't really speak much on the character, but all I can say is that you Jang. Shut your